Okay, are we live? I think we're up and running, so. Ladies. Yay. Hello and welcome to Philippians chapter 1. We are so glad to be back with you today, and I'm thrilled to have, again, Melissa and Denise.
Thank you.
We're missing our fearless leader, Ashrita, today. Ashrita, we really do miss you. She's in Chicago working on some things with her new book. So we'll have more information maybe about some of those things before we end our Philippians study.
Oh, good.
I hope so. Yeah. We love you, Ashrita. Miss you.
Absolutely.
All right. So digging right into Philippians chapter 1, maybe day one. Why don't we just, is there something that stood out to you for this particular day?
Well, the whole chapter is joy and suffering.
Okay.
Yep. And for this particular day, it's greetings from Paul and Paul's thanksgiving and prayer. So I thought that was really cool how he, greeted the saints, the overseers, and the deacons. So he, included everybody that way.
So right off the bat, we see that this is a letter to the Philippians and kind of the typical Hellenistic greeting that we see in some of Paul's other letters. But if we studied Galatians, we would see this is a completely different, this is a nice greeting.
Oh,
right?
Yes.
Yeah. But I was thinking about Galatians. Oh, you foolish Galatians.
Oh,
Yeah, there's none of that here.
No, there's none of that. Can you explain Hellenistic?
Hellenistic, just the Greek culture.
Great.
Yeah,
okay.
Fancy word for Greek culture.
Okay.
Sure. Good question, Denise.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, Paul definitely, this is obviously a letter. These are his friends.
And he loves them
a
lot.
It comes out.
Yes.
Is thankful for them. Good. Okay. So what else? What other observations?
Well, I can't stop remembering that Paul is chained to a guard all day long. And he's still talking to the Philippians about how he loves them. And, there's still there's a joy about him. And I have decided that if I was chained to somebody all day long, I would not be joyful. I'd like to think I would be. Do you know what I'm saying?
I do.
Yes.
I do. At the same time, I feel don't you think, I was applying, and maybe I'm skipping way ahead into application for prison when it comes to prison. But do you think there's ways that we sometimes feel we're in a prison?
Oh. Wow.
Yeah. Does something come to mind?
I even think about just being in a prison of your own thoughts. Just allowing yourself to get so caught up, whether it's worry or anxiety or stress or ungratefulness or discontentment with something that's in your life that you just can't stop thinking about and obsessing over. And it can feel imprisoning.
Absolutely. We talked those very words this morning here at church in Bible study, just obsessing over our thoughts. What do we obsess about? I think Paul's obsessed with one thing in the gospel or the letter to the Philippians.
Joy.
I think there's even something above joy, Melissa.
Christ. The joy that we get from Jesus Christ.
Yes.
He is the source of all joy. It is him. It's his presence.
And you can only get that joy through Christ.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So this morning we were talking about things, last week I mentioned Marie Kondo and how she helps us clean out our closets. And so if we're talking about our spiritual closet and our heart, what is it that we want to keep a hold of? And without a doubt, it would be, Paul just magnifies Christ. I'm not a very good counter, but I counted 42 times in the whole book of Philippians and 18 here in chapter 1. Christ.
Wow.
Almost half just in one chapter.
Yeah.
Wow.
So I think Paul's thought, I think he's obsessed with Christ, and it made me think, okay, what am I obsessing over?
Well,
as
that
you
gives
said,
us an answer, right? So you think about the thoughts that you can be imprisoned by, or, what struggles do you have in life, right? And they're very real. We've been talking about life is very real. And what does he do? Christ. Christ is number one. And he says, seek him first.
Absolutely, Denise.
Wow, we could solve some world problems here.
Well, I like that you pointed out that he is just, he's in prison. He's suffering. There are trials. We even see, I don't know that this is in day 1, but day 2, like there are people kind of afflicting him too. Yeah. So there are some relationship issues here, jockeying for position. Like Paul is suffering and still has joy. Is there anything in here from day 1 that stood out to you about how and why that is?
Well, I know that part of the reason I read that Paul had joy, and he felt that this was a way to repay the Philippians for all the support that they have done for him, is, to have joy over them. And I thought that was really interesting, because the Philippians were the people that supported him both through encouragement and staying in contact, and also financially. And what did he have to give back, right? When you're in prison, what do you have to give?
That's so true.
Yeah. So I thought that was really, really great to read that.
Good. It's amazing to see how much comfort he took in his suffering, just from the support of this community of people rallied around him and the cause of Christ. Like when we suffer, the community around us can bring us so much comfort and peace when we know that they're on our side, and on Christ's side.
We have a woman in women's ministry whose husband was in a really, really bad accident, right? And, we've all been praying for her and for him. And on Sunday, when you saw her, Carmen, she told you she was excellent.
Yes.
Amazing.
Yes.
Because of the support. Yes.
1, because of Christ, but then 2, because of the support that she's received.
Well, she only receives that support because of Christ. I mean, where else do we get that, right?
Yeah.
Even when you have a group of friends, they only can go so far, right? You know what I'm saying?
Absolutely.
Yes.
So, Christ first. But Melissa, I love that. That's an excellent observation. And then a practical application, something that we like to remind women, especially on this online ministry, like find a friend, a friend to do this. There's something, we're really, really grateful to have this online ministry and be able to do this through the internet and communicate. This is special, but it's not the same as having this face-to-face and having this face-to-face community. So grab a friend to do this study with. It's not too late. Or come on in Wednesday morning, Wednesday evening, Thursday evening too.
I do want to point out verses 9 to 11. It says, "And it is my prayer that your love may abound more and more with knowledge and all discernment, so that you may approve what is excellent, and so be pure and blameless for the day of Christ, filled with the fruit of righteousness that comes through Jesus Christ, to the glory and praise of God." And that their love may abound, our love may abound more and more with knowledge and discernment, to approve what is excellent, and to be pure and blameless. It's like, okay, that's a great prayer. Makes me want to pray for my friends.
Yeah.
Yes.
Paul knows how to pray, and I think
really
we've talked about it in study before, but that he knows how to pray, like somehow above his circumstances and above the Philippians' circumstances. Like he's not praying them out of, we'll see that they're suffering as well, but he's not necessarily praying them to get out of their suffering. He's praying them through the suffering, through the trial. I love his prayer.
I love that verse. I wrote that down as my favorite verse for the week.
Yeah.
I think it's such a good reminder that love and knowledge, or grace and truth, go hand in hand. And when we lean too far to one of the two extremes and we don't balance it out with the other, that's where we err, I think, in interpreting and applying scripture. We need to have both. God himself is the perfect balance of justice and mercy. And I think Paul knew that, and so encouraged that love would grow in conjunction with knowledge and not apart from it.
Thank you for that, Melissa. Yeah, I hadn't tied that into the grace and truth. I like that. I think I was thinking, love is not blind. Paul's kind of saying love is not blind here.
Yeah.
I don't know if you've ever, I felt like my love with Dave at first was a little blind.
Oh.
Like, he was.
But there's a good
But after how many
thing
years
about
of marriage, it's not so blind anymore.
No, but it's better and richer because of it, because of the knowledge of it, And when you love something, like, you want to learn more about that too. I shared this morning, I've got a friend, she's a wonderful math teacher. She loves math and she loves learning about math. But then when we love someone, we want to learn more about that person. If we love Jesus, we want to learn more about him. So
But I will be very real. Okay. I will bring in one really real thought. One thing that I do struggle with, Jesus is the whole enchilada. Like, there's nothing missing, right? When you go to him, everything he says he is. But I don't feel like I desire him enough, right? Like, I read, yep, I did day whatever, or, I did part of it, and I even studied today. I'm good.
Right.
Right. And I can't even believe I'm saying this on social media to get out there, but it is a struggle. And I confessed that to the Lord today and just told him, I'm sorry. Can you imagine? He's the creator, our good shepherd. I'm sorry, I don't want to spend more time.
Denise, thanks for being real, though. And to me, that just goes to Paul. We need this prayer. We need this prayer that our love would abound more and more, because humanly speaking, that's not going to happen.
There's a Casting Crowns song that says, when people just humble themselves and pray. And sometimes I will think, just humble yourself and pray, so give it to the Lord. But I feel like it's a dirtbag sometimes. Actually, often. Yes. Yes. Yeah, it is hard, right? Yeah. Okay, that's enough realness for today.
No, thank you for being real, Denise. This is what we're aiming for, right?
Yes.
We would not get anywhere if we just put on plastic smiles and plastic faces. And
no.
What kind of love is that, honestly?
Well, when the storms come, you're going to wash out with them. So,
I know we've been on day one for a long time, so we may not get all the way through here. But for this prayer, one thing that stood out to me is this idea of approving what is excellent. Like, at first, as I was unpacking the prayer a little bit, I thought, okay, this is a prayer about love. Like, Paul wants us to understand what is love, and he prays that. But as I dug into it, I began to think that, no, the heart of this is that we might approve what is excellent.
Right.
Yeah. I see. Okay, so two points with this. A couple things that are to remain in our spiritual closets, that we might know joy in the fullness of Christ's joy. One, Christ himself.
Yes.
No brainer.
Right.
But two, I don't think we can have real joy without understanding this idea of excellence and living in excellence. And I think that we kind of see that if skipping over to day 4, verse 27, Paul says, only let your manner of life be worthy of the gospel of Christ. So he prays for their excellence, and then there's kind of this call to live an excellent life. Yeah, I'd be curious about your thoughts on that.
Well, one of the things that I think is, after sharing that very real thought, the realest thing I can talk about is my marriage, right? And that is a reflection of our relationship with Jesus in so many ways. Even if you're not married, and when you're in a relationship, it's still a relationship. And God doesn't call us to stay married. He calls us to have an excellent marriage. You know, and so like when we're walking through life, he doesn't call us in whatever we're doing to just like show up.
Right.
And excellence, by the way, is if you're walking one step at a time, then you're walking towards excellence because it's a process, right?
Yes.
Right.
Yes.
Right. That's my thoughts.
I like that, Denise. There's a quality element to it.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
I brought in some pearls today because, you know, I used to have a pearl business.
Yes.
And so some strands are just like mediocre pearls. And I feel like Paul's not, he's calling the Philippians, look, you're not mediocre.
No. Well,
you've got Christ. So
he didn't die for mediocre. He died for everybody, but to accept him, don't stay mediocre.
So what does that look like? Like, how do we live? How do we live if we skipped over to day 4 and apply? Only let your manner of life be worthy of the gospel of Christ, so that whether I come and see you or am absent, I may hear of you that you are standing firm in one spirit, with one mind, striving side by side for the faith of the gospel, and not frightened in anything by your opponents. And then he goes on to, even in their suffering, for it has been granted to you that for the sake of Christ you should not only believe in him, but also suffer for his sake, engaged in the same conflict that you saw I had, and now hear that I still have. I don't know if not all of that speaks to excellence, or maybe gives us an idea of how we're, what does it look like to let your manner of life be worthy of the gospel of Christ?
Well, I think it starts very basic. And so I wrote down stand firm and don't fear your enemies, and we will suffer, but it all matters in the Lord, right? And so I kind of attribute this. Now, if I'm going off on too far of a tangent, just pull us right back in. But I kind of attribute it when you're driving down the expressway. Everybody's driving in a car. Everybody's going someplace, right? Some of those peoples are Christian. Some of those folks are Christian, and some are not. So the way that you drive matters, right? If we're in Christ, the way that we drive matters. Good point. So what do we need to do daily? We need to be praying. We need to be armoring up, right? We know that God is in control and everything matters, and he doesn't waste. Suffering is good. Like, suffering brings about growth. And if you fly over, I tell my ladies this all the time, if you fly over a landscape, the mountaintops are where you have the great view and you feel super close to God, right? But there's snow-capped mountains. Where's the growth? In the valleys. So there's a reason that we have that. And I think having good friends around to remind us, I think that's helpful, right?
So are you saying, Denise, that excellence comes out of suffering too? Yeah.
I really
That's hard to hear.
At least you know you're going to get something out of it, though.
I think too, it's that call to not keep on sinning. You know, Paul says, don't keep sinning. Don't fall into the trap of thinking that, oh, well, because God has grace, I can just keep sinning because grace will cover that.
Right.
No, you can't. You shouldn't. Don't do that. That's the live excellent. That's the be worthy. Let your life be worthy of this. Don't tread on the gospel. Don't minimize Christ's sacrifice by continuing to live in a life of sin. Yes, there's grace, but don't let that be an excuse to fall back into enslavement.
Very good. Very good.
Tell me what you think about this, because I feel like, salvation is the gift. We accept the gift. The walk to walk worthy is choice. The choice, we still get to choose the gift, right? It's not like, pushed. I mean, it's offered to you. But the walk, oh, we're going to heaven. Okay, that's great. Now the door's open for us to know Jesus and talk to God 24/7. What are we going to do with that?
I mean, that takes me back then. I'm sorry. I am really skipping around, ladies, but back to day 3 when Paul says, yes, and I will rejoice. That's a choice right there, Denise, to what you're saying.
Yeah.
Paul is choosing, even though what's what was back before them. And the former proclaimed, this is verse 17, the former proclaimed Christ out of selfish ambition, not sincerely, but thinking to afflict me in my imprisonment. What then? Only that in every way, whether in pretense or in truth, Christ is proclaimed, and in that I rejoice. And he seconds it again. Yes, I will rejoice. So I think you're right. There is a daily choice, and Melissa, there is kind of setting aside the sin.
Mm-hmm. And so as women, I think that we are hard on ourselves, okay? We're solvers, all right? I think this should be an encouragement to every woman out there. You're on track. You may not feel on track. You may have diapers up to your eyeballs. You may be cooking dinner. You know, your husband may be like mine, waking up, what's for dinner? I don't know. Let me smack you first, and then I'll think about dinner, right? I don't know. Last I looked, it was 6:30. Do you know what I'm saying? And so, but you're on track. You know, we're not, it's not like we're skipping through life, you know? I mean, we have that joy, and there are days we're skipping, but there's days we're not skipping. And that's okay.
I think the verse that gives me comfort on that one, Denise, is verse 6.
Okay.
Again.
Started a good
And
work.
I am sure of this, that he who began a good work in you will bring it to completion at the day of Jesus Christ.
Absolutely.
Thank
He's
goodness.
going to do it.
He's going to do it.
And we don't have to strive, and we don't have to push ourselves beyond our capacity.
How many times?
We can aim for excellence, but he's going to be the one to fulfill that promise, and we can trust him to do that.
And how many times does he say prayer? How many times does he talk about praying, right?
I think along with what you said too about the excellence, like we don't have to strive. As we go into, further into Philippians, I think it's good to differentiate excellence from perfection. And I talked about that with pearls today. There aren't perfect pearls because they're natural. They're very, very, very good pearls, and they can, sometimes men do things to improve them, but they're not perfect. It's one thing I love about pearls. They're not perfect. And Paul, I think it's back in chapter 3, he says, look, I have not already obtained it. Yeah, chapter 3, verse 12. Not that I have already obtained this or am already perfect, but I press on to make it my own. So he's striving to live this life of excellence, which I'm glad. Thank you for differentiating that from perfection. Or did I just do that?
You did it. Yeah.
Okay.
But can we just end with this? Can we just end with the idea that God wants us, right? So if we have situations in our life that bring us to our knees regularly throughout the day, our compass needs to go back to Jesus regularly, right? Whether you're on your knees or you're laying down. I always forget the correct version of that term. Do you want to tell us?
Prostrate.
There you go.
Prostrate.
Yeah,
see, I just
definitely.
Thanks, Denise. Thanks for leading me right out there.
But to be continually leaning on him, right? Paul could have
I'm
through
lost.
the day. No, you're not lost.
Yeah,
Okay.
thank you. No,
Sure.
You're absolutely right. And I think that, trying to rein it back in, ladies.
Hope you got a good laugh for today.
Christ, like 18 times in chapter 1. That is how Paul is getting through suffering with Christ. So, any other last thoughts?
So being raised in a family that didn't necessarily focus on that, the fact that we do, and we know that we can call out to Christ.
It's a gift.
We were not going to cry. No cry Wednesday. I did.
Oh,
okay.
Ladies, we would love to hear from you. What did you get out of this chapter? And was there anything from our conversation that really resonated with your heart? Your comments mean the world to us. We really do like hearing from you. We look forward to meeting with you again next week. Thank you for joining us today.
Can you cut that off while you're, while we're just sitting here trying to smile and the tears